Back to school comes with a lot of financial stress. In Canada, parents will spend an average of $600 to $750 per child for every kindergarten to grade 12 student going back to school. But if you're a parent with ADHD, back to school multiplies decisions, deadlines, changes, and things to organize. And you may not notice, but ADHD can quietly change how you spend because of time blindness and executive dysfunction. Today, I explain why back to school may be setting your ADHD brain on fire, what challenges may trigger task paralysis, how it can significantly impact your bank account, and what to do to prevent that. If you find yourself running around like a headless chicken and feel like you're going to lose your mind or dread being able to get everything done, this episode is for you. As a parent with ADHD, do you hate all the craziness and nervous system overdrive back to school creates? Or does it give you the spikes of dopamine you need and you love it? Well, you know what? Either way, it's all good. But one thing that you are not maybe going to notice is that either way, it can affect your spending habits. Back to school implies a lot more than just buying supplies. For parents with an ADHD brain, not only do you have a heavier mental load to manage with everything going back to school ads, you may also be dealing with a son or daughter that feels anxious about starting school, having a new teacher, worrying if everything is going to work out. So, if as a parent, back to school shopping makes you spend more, you want to know what challenges are at play and what triggers the behavior so you can limit the damages. When school ended last June and summer arrived, September seemed far away. Your ADHD brain processes time differently. Think now or not now. And September, in June, even in July, fell in the second category. That's why you didn't start planning ahead of time or put money aside in advance. ADHD brains activate with a lot less difficulty when there's novelty, excitement, or urgency, and that happens when August arrives. School supplies appear in stores. You see ads everywhere, hear them on the radio, see them on television, and you probably even get flyers in the mailbox. The only thing is that can trick you into overspending for something that is already costing you a lot of money. As an ADHD and money coach, I help ADHD women like you figure out what's actually happening with their money, how ADHD, behaviors, beliefs, and the way your brain works are influencing what happens after you earn your money, and we build systems that work for you. If you find yourself constantly spending to cope with stress, that paying bills on time and knowing where your money goes triggers overwhelm and guilt, and you need someone to help you create habits that will make your financial goals possible, then I want to tell you about my 60-minute breakthrough consultation. So basically, we meet in a laser-focused coaching session meant to uncover the ADHD money challenges, creating the most friction. We identify one goal with a personalized strategy designed to help you stay engaged and move forward. You can book your breakthrough consultation through the link in the episode's description and show notes. Now, I want us to look at the numbers for back to school season because they matter more than you think and for reasons you may not realize. Canadian households are expected to spend an average of $600 to $750 per child for every kindergarten to grade 12 student going back to school. 85% of Canadian parents decide where they will make their purchases based on price. These average back to school costs are those of neurotypicals, and they don't take into account executive dysfunction, time blindness, or the dopamine spike you get while shopping when you have ADHD. The overspending isn't necessarily happening because you're buying too much. It can happen because your brain is trying to solve too many issues at the same time. Organizing everything that needs to be, planning and trying to make everyone's schedule fit, managing time that impacts the previous two because of time blindness, and making repeated decisions that literally blows up your mental load. As ADHDers, time blindness makes it difficult for us to situate ourselves on a timeline. If that's you, there's something I have my clients do that is going to make it easier for you to position yourself in time, and I'll share that a little bit later in this episode. But for now, what I would love to know is what's the back to school decision that drains your brain the fastest? Is it meals, schedules, school stuff, activities, or something else? Let me know in the comments. Organization, planning, time management, and decision making take a lot of energy for an ADHD brain. Like, that's a lot to handle for your brain that has to deal with a lot of friction, and that friction ends up building. Why does this matter? Well, friction refers to all the small obstacles or barriers, sometimes obvious, sometimes subtle, between the intention and the action. That makes it hard to do something or engage in things like managing money. Think of friction as ADHD interfering or getting in the way. Friction can come from a cluttered space, an unfinished task, a conversation you need to have. So give yourself grace for those times when things are difficult. ADHD does make parenting and life more complex. Now, a good example to illustrate how friction compounds is meal planning, which is also a huge challenge for many ADHD women. So take dinner. You're not just deciding what to eat. You're figuring out what you already have in the fridge, the freezer, pantry, how long it's going to take to cook, what time you need to start cooking, what needs to be bought, the grocery list to make, when you'll go to the groceries, etc., etc. By the time you get to the end of everything meal planning involves, you've had to make a lot of decisions. They add to those you've been making all day, and your brain is fried, your nervous system is probably dysregulated, and your energy tank is running low. The same friction shows up with school supplies, homework, clothes, appointments, activities, transportation, lunches, work logistics. The point is, each individual decision looks small, but added together, they create a huge decision load, and that's what can influence your spending habits. The idea is to give your brain enough mental space and time to make decisions rather than deciding at the last minute or impulsively, because that can end up being costly. The thing is that in the moment, you might not see it or even be aware of it. And that takes us to a lot of that traditional advice out there for back to school that fails ADHD brains because it is meant for neurotypicals. Start in advance, compare prices, stay flexible on certain things. The thing is, ADHD brains don't operate the same as neurotypical ones, and that includes money. And if you've tried any of it, only to realize it didn't work or went sideways again, you didn't fail. It's the advice that failed how your brain works. That's why you have to do it the ADHD way. Anything, including money, has to have an ADHD system around it. Because when your brain is overloaded, spending can become a tool for reducing friction. The question then becomes, what problem was I trying to make easier when I decided to buy this? And there's something I want to share with you because I'm super excited. It's coming soon. And if you're someone, or if right now you're realizing that there's something not working with how you manage money, and you're like, this has to change. My money investigation process helps ADHD women figure out where their money is going and what's actually driving it. The interest list is open and you can join by clicking the link in the description below or in the episode's show notes. Before I give you practical tips to not fall in the overspending trap, here's the exercise I said I'd share if you have a hard time situating yourself on a timeline. The goal is simple: give you a global view. And you'll actually be able to use it with a few of the tips I'll be sharing in a minute. Most of the moms I coach use the big family calendar that has 1 month on 2 pages and room to write as their planning tool. A calendar is awesome, but it only gives you 1 month at a time. If you're in a place where you can close your eyes, go ahead and do so. Like no closing eyes if you're driving. Picture the month of September. Now, right beside it, I want you to add October. So you have September and October, and in your mind, you see them side by side. How does it feel like to have 61 days on your timeline? Think about it for a second. Then I want you to add November. So now you're seeing September, October, November. What does it feel like to have 91 days on your timeline? Remember that time passes differently. That's why it feels blurry. Your next step is very simple. Open Google Agenda, Calendar, or any software that allows you to print blank months and print September to November. You can even add December if you want. And don't worry, the idea is not to replicate the big family calendar if that's the calendar you're using. The idea is to put those 3 or 4 months together and somewhere visible so you can connect with time differently. So choose a place in the house where you go often and that you will see September, October, November often. So let's say, for example, that you decide to cross each day on the small calendar. You will see that time is moving. That's the goal. It's to give your brain a visual of something that is not tangible. All right, here are practical coaching tips to reduce decisions and friction. Because when you reduce decisions and friction, spending to cope with stress also decreases. Tip number 1, create defaults. This first one is actually one a client came up with. She wanted to simplify things for herself by reducing her decision load. ADHD brains can struggle when everything requires a fresh decision and when too many things require attention at the same time. Well, when that happens, your brain will give attention to nothing. So during our coaching session, I helped her figure out what would work for her, and part of that was to cook a few defaults for meals. So here's how she did it, and you can actually do the same or tweak it to make it work for you. First, she chose the recipes, and she chose crock-pot recipes because it made it easy for her. Second, make the grocery list. Third, pick a day to grocery shop. Fourth, decide what day she'd prep and cook. And fifth, freeze when done. That's it. And you want to know what I love about her idea? It made her feel calm, planned, and organized. Here's a tweak you can make. You can create default meals that are easy to cook, and days during the week you'll use those defaults. The only thing is, though, you'll have to make sure you have everything to prepare it, unless it's leftovers, of course. The goal isn't meal planning perfection, it's removing decisions. What's great is that you can apply the same principle to lunch options and grocery days. Defaults also help to not overspend on groceries you might forget about and end up throwing away. A default is a decision you only have to make once. That's where the 3 or 4 months that you put on the wall come in handy, because you can use a color for default meals, another one for grocery days, another one for the meals that you are going to cook that are not defaults. Nothing complicated, just a reminder for your brain that perceives and processes time differently. Tip 2, separate deciding from doing. Not everything you decide needs to be done right away. It can actually be a trap. For me, the way it shows up is my brain skips the decision part because deciding with ADHD isn't simple, even if the decision we have to make is. I tell myself I'll do this now so I don't forget. And sure enough, as I was taking notes of that story, I realized that I hadn't sent the coaching follow-up email to a client. I stopped, went and sent it, and came back. Did it have to be done right away? Of course not. ADHDers, we often decide, organize, and execute at the same time. That's why we often put way too much to accomplish in one single day. Instead, decide earlier, do later, but don't necessarily rely on your memory to remind you what you decided to do. Tip 3, create a dopamine spike by saving for next year. Back to school comes around every year, right? And if this one was chaotic and overwhelming for you, although ADHD brains love chaos, begin putting money aside for next year. Remember when I said that giving your brain space and time to make decisions to reduce the load and the friction? That's what this will do for you. and you'll understand in a second where the dopamine spike is going to come from. And it will also break the amount in smaller amounts, and your ADHD brain will also benefit from that. So a year is 52 weeks. And depending on when you get paid, you can automate the money you'll need at the same time next year. $750 is the highest amount right now in the back to school cost estimation. Take that number and add maybe 15% to it, because chances are prices are going to increase. The total you get by adding 15% to $750 is $862.50. So let's round that up to $865 to make it easier. Divided by 52, if you're paid every week, it's a bit less than $17. So that is the transfer you can automate. Multiply that number by 2 if you are paid every 2 weeks. The dopamine hit or the dopamine spike will come from the amount of money that increases. Remember, back to school can make you spend differently because your ADHD brain is carrying more planning, organizing, time pressure, and decisions than usual. Yes, it's a short amount of time, but it doesn't mean that the impacts are minimal. If you like this episode, subscribe to my channel. And to know more about how money investigation can make managing money simple and easy for your ADHD brain, you can join the interest list. The link is in the description of this episode. Until next time, keep rocking that phenomenal ADHD brilliance, and I'll catch you in the next episode.